thinking about slashing your light bill, looking for what has digital impact on consumption, energy consumption, pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Stay tuned and hear what Judson Wilmott got to say about how we're going to create this new built environment and create an environment that will going to be prosperous for us all. We could get rid of some of this pain that we're feeling from the electricity as we go from strength to strength.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative, 242.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. This evening, as I mentioned, we have Judson Wilmott on vibe with us, and he's going to be doing a deep dive into some of the aspects that's going to help us become more efficient and cost effective in our energy. And we all have been waiting for some great solution to come along so that we could do that and become more cost effective and feasible and more powerful and nimble so we could use our monies for better things than just spending it on energy. But engineers do some serious things, and you got to spend the money first and then you could spend it bigger. Welcome, Judson. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, Dale. Thanks for the opportunity again. And I'm always happy to join you as you speak to some of the very important issues here in our country.
Yes, we try to make sure that we are able to do these things and create a greater mindset, open up some minds to some things that they might, areas that they might not have had exposure to before. Sometimes us engineers, we get into these space cadet type environments, but we leave people out. And we assume that they might know everything, but everybody don't know everything. Only one man I know walked this earth did that, but that's for a different show. So
well,
go ahead.
Certainly, Dale. We are more than engineers as we deal with trying to improve the Bahamas. We're economists. We deal with finance. We deal with construction. We deal with many soft issues, all that play a very important part in delivering projects. And, as I look at it in terms of where we are, I think we are at a point where we need to clearly identify the very important pieces that are necessary to deliver successful projects in the Bahamas, whether it's a power generation project, a roadway project, a building, or whatever it may be. All of these types of activities, they attract finance, they attract labor, they attract equipment, machinery, fuel, all of the things that are very vital to the success or failure of our economy. And tonight, as I look at the challenge that you put forth to me, I see a few things that I consider to be very important.
Yeah. So before you dive into those, we just wanted to set the stage a little bit. And so we have on something to think about. What we strive for is our new built environment. And this is something that I created in COVID, so that because everybody was talking about this new normal, and I was like, no, we don't want a new normal. We want a real normal or a new built environment, so that we could have it be with intentional thought, and we could create the environment that we want, so that we could be successful, as we move forward. And as we move from strength to strength, the new built environment has pillars, and we talk about the sun, sand, sea, people, and digital. And sun, sand, sea isn't about the traditional sun, sand, sea that we have, where people come for tourists to see the sun, bathe in the sun, etc. But we're talking about the renewables for the sun, which we'll be talking about tonight, whether it's a renewable or alternate energy, sand, in terms of how we could use our land in order to create wealth, whether it's through bush medicines and the like, or natural resources in the sea, we have marine, etc. But our most important thing, as you mentioned before, is our people. And so yes, we're not just engineers, but we are nation builders and the like, and so forth. And so with digital, we know the powers of digital has shown us so far. And so we want to be able to show what you present tonight, to show how that can be the digital for energy. And as we move forward from that.
Well,
So as you were saying, you could continue. Yeah.
yeah, as I look at it, you have to look at what are the very important pieces that make up delivering the
Right.
solutions that we require to improve our economy and the quality of life for Bahamians, and to produce an environment that we could function in socially, economically, and so forth. And so as I look at it, I see some very important pieces. Those very important pieces are: one, construction, the role that construction plays in getting you the end product; and two, the diversification of the fuel source that is required to produce electricity, which is a vital component to how and when our country is going to be accepted as a first world operating center, similar to Singapore, South Korea, and some of the industrial first world developed countries. And so when we look at the component related to fuel and we tie that to its relationship to the environment, we recognize that there's one objective here. We have this good thing called fuel, carbon base, and then we have fuel in the sun, in the sky. The sun that you speak about is nothing more than a fuel source.
Right.
And it replaces in some way the volume of energy, fuel that is required from carbon-based products to produce electricity per kilowatt, et cetera, et cetera. And so as you look at the environment that you're working with, you find that your objective is to use as much of the sun, if you can, at a very affordable cost to Bahamians, but at the same time be able to match and marry that sun with the things that it depend on. And whether we like it or not, we can't operate energy plants in the Bahamas from solar without a what we call spinning reserve operation alongside solar produced electricity, such as carbon-based or nuclear-based energy that is giving you electricity. We need electricity for 24 hours, okay? And to get that electricity for 24 hours, we have to make a choice. And if those choices are being looked at very carefully, one of the choice is what is the most affordable way to provide this electricity. Another very important point is how can I get this electricity available to me, okay, when I need it? And the industry standards for these availabilities, we need electricity 100% of the time. The clock ticks from January 1st to December 31st, and we need electricity that entire period. Now, when we look at it again, so we have the sun, we have the normal and the regular carbon-based energy being produced. And what is the similarity between the two? Well, one of them kicks off the thing that we're trying to get rid of, which is this carbon that goes into the air that is tied to the problems associated with global warming and other complications thereof. The other thing is that the carbon-based electricity that we generate, that we need, that we can't, that has to be there along with the sun, okay? That energy gives off this carbon that's a problem for us, but it gives us 24 hours of electricity. How do we mitigate this concern? Well, there are many of us who look to solar, okay? And then there are some people in the world today that look to utilizing the existing carbon supplied energy, which could be from natural gas, propane, ethane, and other gases that are used in engines to produce electricity in tandem with wind or solar. Now, some of the problems that we face with wind and solar relates to three of the variables that I mentioned, which are availability, reliability, and efficiency. Remember, we have to have electricity for 24 hours. How do we do that? Well, it just so happened that in this day and time, experts, scientists, and others in the energy sector, those that are producing carbon fossil fuels, as well as those that are dealing with solar and other renewables, have come up with a form of energy production to utilize the same fossil fuel, okay, to produce electricity that is similar to the electricity that we get from solar. And then when you compare the variables between the two, you find that from an economic standpoint and from an availability standpoint, because we have to have electricity 100% of the time, you find that the carbon fossil fuels running in special type equipment can produce electricity and have the exact same effect or similar effect as electricity being generated by solar. Because most people, when they speak about energy being generated via solar or wind, they talk about, well, we are trying to avoid putting carbon into the air.
Right.
So
I was going to say,
there are a
let's
number of
clarify it a little
pieces
bit
that
now.
we can cover as we go, if you allow me.
Yep.
But I just wanted to put that on the table.
Yeah,
because
no, I just wanted
the
you to
question of
clarify.
affordability is extremely important here. And the most important question that I want to lay on the table is the availability of the sun. And when we generate electricity using solar, we must face certain very important facts, especially here in the Bahamas. Go right ahead.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to clarify for the audience that when you say similar, the energy or the output, the electricity isn't different. It's the same what we're going to be using everybody day to day.
Yeah, it's the same
just that the
electricity.
process that you go about it is similar.
The net effect is that there is this attempt to ensure that there is zero carbon let off into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so we'll cover those as we move ahead. But just
Right.
let me give you an example.
Sure.
For solar, because I know you had asked me, or you and I had a conversation offline related to solar. So let's take a simple mathematical example related to solar.
Right.
Okay, very simple. And I want anybody that's listening to grab your pencil and paper and follow me very carefully. Okay, we're going to use 1 megawatt of solar as an example. And we're going to set a parameter that we have to have electricity for 24 hours. Well, now, there are many experts out there that are more wise, know much more than I do when it comes to solar. Dale, you're one of them, right? So if I'm wrong, you correct me.
Yeah.
If we want 1 megawatt of electricity for a 24-hour day, according to the scientists, in the Bahamas, it is possible only to generate energy from the sun for approximately 5.2 hours in one given day to get 1 megawatt of solar. that is something that I challenge any of you to get with the scientists and see whether this number, this 5.2 megawatts, is accurate or not. But let's accept that for
It
this
varies
discussion.
a little bit, but it's not.
Okay,
Not
so I'm
important.
using
Yeah.
5.2
Yeah.
based on what the scientists have checked out for me. Okay, now based on that, there are 24 hours. So if I have a need for electricity generated for that 5.2 hour period,
Right.
I am required to place, not considering batteries or any other additional auxiliary items that make up the total delivery for solar to you, but from a land mass perspective, I have to give you approximately 5 acres of land for that 5 hour period. Okay, so follow me now. Get your pencil and paper. So when we get there now, and we have our solar panels laying on 5 acres of land, we then have, and we're collecting that electricity. When that sun stops giving us that 5.2 hours of energy that we need to produce electricity, I'm done. So what do I have to do? I need power for 24 hours. So what I'm going to have to do is this. I now need an extra 20 acres to produce the power that I need for 24 hours. So that's under the context that we want to generate electricity for 24 hours only using solar.
Right.
So we're going to get into why we have these hybrid solutions now, where, as I explained, we can't get rid of the fossil fuels. Well, if we try, here's what we have to do. We need 1 hour. We need 1 megawatt of power for the Bahamas, for New Providence in 1 day. We need 25 acres for that. Okay?
Yeah.
25 acres of land. So if I have 100 acres of land, I'm only going to be able to get approximately 4 megawatts. Now, what do we produce within the entire Bahamas? Now, based on 2017, 2018 statistics, and anywhere from 2012 to 2017, we in the entire Bahamas, not including Grand Bahama, we produce approximately 1.8 billion kilowatts annually. Okay? That's what when all of those generators are running, that's what they generate in terms of, so that's way over 200 megawatts. So to make a long story short, we need approximately 25 acres for 1 megawatt. So if we want to do a 100 megawatt power plant on this island, we need 2,500 acres.
Right.
And depending on where we put those solar panels, that is going to determine the cost of construction before we put the panels in place.
Right.
Why? We now have to do site preparation. We need roads. We need to fasten down these panels to deal with uplift with respect to
storms,
hurricanes, and then we got to deal with dust and all these other things that, we might want to put them on a lake. We might want to put them anywhere we want to put them. But we got to put them where they could function, because the more they get damaged and dusty, the less that they're going to give us any electricity or energy that we require. So now, trust me, I like solar and I like any form of renewable, but we have to look at it in terms of what it's going to cost. And what I'm saying here today is that we have to look at hybrid solutions. And there are some hybrid solutions that permit us not to shoot off some carbon exhaust in the air.
Right.
And so there are 1 or 2 of them, and I'm going to speak to them as we go on, but I'll list the 3 of them for you to kind of set in the back of your mind. One of those solutions is wind, okay? But again, wind has some issues with availability
Right.
and reliability. We need it for 24 hours, and it also has some issues with respect to how it interacts with our current grid system. The two that I would focus on, one is called combined cycle power generation. What is that? That is taking the exhaust that goes up now in the existing power plants, using compatible engines that are designed specifically to get the maximum benefit from combined cycle. And those are typically gas turbines, where you put two or more gas turbines in a parallel system running together, and the exhaust collects 100% of their steam and use that steam, placing it into a steam generator to produce electricity, thereby reducing the fuel required to anywhere from 20, 30% or somewhere thereabouts. So that is considered, in my view, a form of renewable, such that, as we spoke to earlier, the objective is to reduce the volume of the fuel. That's the objective.
Right.
A second solution that is now being utilized in the modern world, and you'll find many major oil companies and others and manufacturers of equipment now venturing into it. And this is called fuel cells. We have two forms of fuel cells. One are the chemical-based reaction type fuel cells, and the other is the mechanical fuel cells. And when we get into that again, Dale, I'll speak to the one that I feel is more compatible for the Bahamas because of the way we are in an island chain and our disadvantages associated with the distribution and the provision of liquefied natural gas to the various smaller islands of the Bahamas and the other complications thereof. The one particular fuel cell that I would speak to or I would recommend is the linear fuel cells. These types of fuel cells, they do not combust, and they have a tremendous amount of reduction in the amount of carbon that would be put into the air. I think it's, very, very comparable, such that the United States government and other governments classify them as renewable energy. So, and I'll expose that as we go ahead, but I don't want to dominate. I just want to speak to linear generators,
Right.
and combined cycle power plants in tandem with the utilization of solar as a solution for New Providence and the Bahamas. I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome. Great foundation to set for our listeners to understand some of the challenges there. And that was going to be part of the question I was asking next was, what are the major challenges that are hindering us from lowering our energy costs? And you highlighted fuel situation as being one of the, what I would consider to be the volatile in terms of pricing and availability. None of that comes from here. So we have to get it, at least let me say, most of it don't come from here. So there's still some people who I believe trying to make it, but it's not any volume that is going to be practical for sustain us. So besides the shipping and the price, I call it, manipulation that happens, in terms of these different solutions, which fuels would be the more ideal fuels for us to be using so that we could generate the biggest bang for our buck?
Well, the biggest bang comes by choosing equipment that
Okay.
are able to burn multiple fuels on the fly without any form of change
So it
to the
gives you
pieces of
flexibility.
equipment. They come ready to burn natural gas in the form of LNG or whatever, with compressed or not liquefied if you bring it. They come ready to burn propane.
Right.
They come ready to burn landfill gas or syngas produced in landfills. They come ready to produce gas that are made from biomass plants using wood and other organics, cardboard and other things that we could generate to utilize to supplement the fuel source.
Right.
The selection of the equipment is extremely important. And it is important such that we must select equipment that are multifaceted in the type of fuel that they could burn. Okay? Now, in terms of current fuel pricing and other environmental constraints, in today's world, the best fuel to purchase for gaseous fuel, that is, to purchase is propane at this particular time as compared to liquefied natural gas. Why? Because of the issues that are going on around the world, whereby sellers are getting much more money for the liquefied natural gas by shipping it to Europe and other places due to the constraints and other complications created by the war.
Right. Right.
However, it is very important to note that the United States of America is the largest producer of natural gas as well as oil, and they have the best technology. And so the Bahamas is a blessed nation, such that its proximity to the United States is not and should not be impacted by these world events.
Right.
In other words, we need to cultivate very good, honest, and professional relationships with US-based entities that produce and sell natural gas as well as fuels. Also, we need to figure out some of the better relationships. I don't know, for God's sake, why we go down south to get fuel, and the best, most affordable, because I used to pump it myself. Worked for Halliburton on the oil rigs, taking the gas and the oil out of the ground. So I know what it costs. I am so baffled as to why we down that way. Okay, and why we're not up in America. Now, the best technical way to bring fuel to the Bahamas is through a pipeline. That's the best technical way. They have pipelines, and I challenge anyone, go online and type the pipelines in the Gulf of Mexico. All of those oil rigs and oil wells and gas wells, they're pumping the oil to shore by pipes. Pipes, you get pipes running from the United States to Canada, pipes running from the United States to Mexico, pipes running from Texas to Florida. If you were to put, and I have an economic impact assessment that I can put online and show you, if you were to produce if somebody was smart enough and courageous enough to do what is right and sit down and negotiate to bring the fuel from the United States via a pipeline, which all requires is turning on a spigot over there and opening a spigot here. We can get our natural gas in the same way they pump the natural gas from Texas to Florida and the shorter distance. And when the assessment was done and the calculations was done, and fuel is measured in what we call MMBTU. So whether it's natural gas, oil, diesel, whatever it is, we have a uniform measurement for it in MMBTU. Therefore, in terms of MMBTU, if we were to put a pipeline from Florida to the Bahamas, based on calculations that was done that I am fully aware of by Floor Corporation and other major companies, number one and number two in engineering and construction in the world. Okay, the cost of that fuel to the burner tip of the generating equipment at Clifton Pier would be less than 5 cents, 6 cents per thousand, 6 cents per kilowatt hour.
And it is what
Based
now?
on the calculations was done now. That particular time, LNG was much higher, or gas.
Yeah.
But the extraction costs and sale for those gas on the pipelines throughout the United States,
Right.
typically from the numbers that I recall, are somewhere around $3, maybe $4 per MMBTU.
Right.
Which is very,
so right now,
and today, I don't know exactly what LNG is. I haven't checked more than propane.
okay.
I know that I can land propane here on this island. No middleman, no profit markup, nothing. I could land it here today. Okay? This island for about between $10 and $11 per MMBTU. Now, you do the math. Now, LNG might be a little more expensive. And we're going through the highest cost of propane. So what's going to happen as the winter goes? The costs go down. The only reason propane went up is because some of the smaller outlying in the country areas, they use a lot of propane to generate the electricity. And so that send the price up just a little bit. But the gaseous fuels obtained from the United States through smart arrangements is a starting point. Why? Because we can utilize those gaseous carbon-based fuels and not emit carbon in the air, and also get carbon credit by using proper equipment to do so.
Okay.
We shouldn't see any exhaust flying up in the air. You can do that. Now, you can't have the tail wagging the dog tail. The government has to step in, and the government has to do so in such a way that the fuel coming to the Bahamian people for the production of electricity is given to them with the minimal amount of handling costs and markup. That can be done. I know it can be done. All it requires is the will to do what is right.
Okay.
And that will then aid in reducing the cost of the fuel. But the equipment that we spoke to aids in reducing the volume of the fuel. Now, we're not putting carbon in the air. We reduce the volume of the fuel. We reduce the cost of the fuel. And we're not bounded by one particular fuel. So if one fuel goes up or goes down, we switch on the fly. And you can put those arrangements in place. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, that flexibility is key right there. Because when you have options, then you don't get stuck with one thing, and then people hold you. I wouldn't say ransom or hostage, but the demand, supply and demand effect takes a bigger impact on when it's only one option, when you have competition of fuels.
Dave, I've been working on energy since 2012 in the Bahamas. Okay. In 2012, I came home with an intent to help this country modernize itself after being given a challenge from a forefather, Selene Oscar Pinland. Okay? Advised me to stay and try to learn something to help to shift, to create the paradigm shift for this country.
Right.
I could say this, under the current government, that one of the types of equipment that was recommended to them in 2012, the aeroderivative gas turbines. Okay? The aeroderivative gas turbines. I can say this. that they have put one in. And also we have to give credit to the Minsk government because they put one in 2019 thereabouts. Now, if we go to, because we only look at the fuel costs, but there are other pieces to this that mess with us that I need to get off my chest. One of them is lubricant oil. I think that if we look into our past practices with the type of equipment that we use to generate electricity, whether it's here on New Providence or in the Family Islands where we're using diesel on the reciprocating engines, we're going to see that we have a big, fat lubricant oil bill. And so that is a cost that needs to be also addressed. Not only from a cost perspective, but from an environmental perspective, because we know all of the impacts. We meet oil all over the place where they're doing work at the various power plants throughout the Bahamas. So if you could put up the slide, I want to go to one of the slides that dealt with the lubricant oils, just to give you an example. Okay, and just to show you from an equipment standpoint, there are different kinds of engines we can use. When I speak to aeroderivative engines, Dale, I'm talking about engines that are very reliable. They're very similar to the kind of engines that you get on an airplane, and they're reliable, that you hop on them every day. There you go, 99.9999. They are dead reliable. They're also available when you need them. But what I wanted to show you about them, and I think we have these, the 2500s, the LM25. We have the TM, that's the mobile ones, two of them at Clifton Pier. But if we go here and we look at some, just to give you an example of a reciprocating engine versus an aeroderivative.
Right.
To get the same amount of power, literally, you have 10,000 liters, 100,000 liters of lubricant oil to get the same amount of, where you're using only 1,000 liters, just by picking the right or the wrong piece of equipment. These are very fundamental issues that go into hidden costs that we don't see when we pick certain forms of equipment to generate our power. It's a lot of it. And, we have a lot of exploits. Another major important point is taking a look at it. Look at the labor piece. You see?
Yeah.
So all of these are costs that we experience when we deal with these particular selections of what we are wanting to do to deal with our country and how we're going to fix our country. And I've jumped over.
Yeah.
So while we're here, if you don't mind, let me just kind of run through a couple of points related to linear generators.
Yeah.
Okay. Linear generators, as you can see, as I spoke to you earlier on them, I explained that, they are considered fuel cells by the U.S. government.
Now, Judson, these apply to not just industrial or utility, right? They go to the industrial, commercial, and so forth, right?
Yeah, data centers use them, like the guy, because of the major reliability and the fact that they are smaller in modules. So to get 1 megawatt, you have to use like 4 230 megawatt modules. So they're not, like, you don't lose the whole system all at once.
Redundant, yeah.
I've looked at some of these for some of the various islands, Family Islands, and New Providence, by the way. And they have the same impact as a solar panel in terms of its emissions. Okay. And as I indicate, the U.S. government, allow them to be utilized as renewable energy, and they get carbon credits for them. You see, And the other big thing about these is this: for 15 megawatts, I only need about an acre.
Right.
And that's the big advantage. Now, the other good thing about these is this: I could take a linear generator. Say you want to put a power plant on Long Island, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a power plant on the south, but Dale wants to put a $300 million investment
Mm-hmm.
in North Long Island. I could take this linear generator, which makes less noise than an air conditioning unit, and it don't have no emissions, right? And set it right next to the resort. Put some ficus around it, you don't even know it there. Huh?
Right.
Give
They
the
got
resort
Mhm.
its power, and at the same time, okay, send power to the grid for the government and for the for BPL. Send the power to the grid simultaneously, okay, thereby eliminating the need to go all over the place and spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars putting in a bunch of new light poles and all this other stuff,
They get blown down. Mhm.
destroying the beauty of the family islands with these big, humongous poles, because the power plant is in the south, similar to what they did in West End and Grand Bahama. They could take one
Yeah.
of these and put right next to the new resort for the Ginn project, okay, thereby eliminating all those poles. And the only time you put the new poles and what have you and all those big poles is as the population and all these other things grow, and
Yeah.
thereby reducing the cost to BPL that has to be passed on to the consumers. But we have to start looking at these smart ways of providing electricity, especially in the family islands, especially
Yeah.
here on New Providence. And there are solutions that we could look at.
Yeah. So one of the things though that I wanted to be clear though, these engines, they come in scalable sizes that not necessary just for utilities, right? I mean, I'm thinking that based on if we have a plane engine and
So
then we could go down.
these aeroderivatives are different. I mean, these linear generators are different from the aeroderivatives that you saw earlier.
Yes.
These are small 230 kilowatt modules. So,
Okay.
for instance, on a 5 megawatt power plant, I would need about 75 of those. No, on a 17 megawatt
Yeah.
power plant,
So
I'd need about 75 of those small modules.
yeah, but so if let's say on family or even in Nassau, let's say we build in another mall or two or whatever, and we have these hotspots or these high load areas. Are these engines sizable, scalable that it could become cost effective for some of these solutions, or it has to be utility level?
Well, the answer is yes, because many of the major factories as well as major
Right.
the
Okay.
data centers. Take for instance, we keep talking about
So
technology.
businesses could benefit from this.
Yeah,
Then.
that's what they use. Google, Microsoft, the data centers, sensitive persons, entities that want to have reliable power. This is what they use: fuel cells.
Clean
Why?
power.
Because the availability of these is
Okay.
and like the reliable in 99.9. I think it has like 9.9 times, six nines in the
Yeah.
back
Okay.
in terms of the reliability of these. They hardly go down. The other thing is because they are 230 kilowatt modules, right? If you have a 10 megawatt system, you're only going to lose 230 kilowatts
Okay.
out of 10. So you don't have this where a whole piece of your power has to come down. And you can just slap one out, slap one in, and you're right back in operation. But you put them in an N plus one configuration.
Right.
But
Yeah, but
as
that's
I
good for
put it,
businesses to know. Yeah.
yeah, many of the big hotels and businesses and resorts use this along with combined heat and power to force and cause their to bring down the cost of fuel and also to create their reliability and to accomplish the need for meeting the carbon requirements, so you can get carbon credits. People get carbon credits using this.
Right. But for me, the big thing is being able to reduce that fossil fuel type activity that is actually creating a health challenge for us that we seem to like to close our eyes to, right? And so, from what you were saying, these lose less of the oils, etc., in order just to keep them afloat and keep them functional than the other one. So that's a plus.
But these are
as a
called
whole.
linear generators. Linear.
Right.
And what that does, Dale, is this. That allows, you don't have all those moving parts. And the linear generators, it's where the technology is going, because they're in the fuel cell classification. And as I told you, the U.S. government now regulates these as these are classified as renewable energy.
Right.
You get carbon credits.
Yeah.
Now, cool. Also, Dale, I wanted to, and I know this is
but I want you to be able to show some viable solutions in terms of how people can use this thought process that you're putting on the table to benefit us, independent of the utility.
But we're creating.
I think that's key for us moving forward.
But it's not necessarily. No. The way that I have, I mean, you can do it independent of the utility, but that's not what I'm trying to advocate here.
No, I don't. So when I say independent of the utility, I mean not having to always wait on whether the engines at the utility is working. Not that you won't be getting signal or whatever it is, but there has to be a hybrid at all levels, right? In terms of you need the big utility, but you also need to have flexibility for, like me, I have internet service from both providers. Today, come home, my main provider sends me a text just as I walk in the door to say, sorry, your service is off. We will expediently connect you back as you want. I mean, that's 5:30, it's now 7:30, and I'm still off. So good thing I have a service.
You hit a point that I'm glad you touched onto that point. And I put a screen up there that I want to go over with your audience. And I say this, and I hope that this is what the government's doing, because I think I shared this about 4 or 5 years ago. As you can see, I copyrighted it back in 2022. But what I envision to fix the power sector of the Bahamas is listed on the screen there. It's where I advocate that the office of the Prime Minister necessarily appoints a public utilities commission. No minister, you don't need no minister or no this or that over it. A public utilities commission with a group of commissioners, competent commissioners, okay, who have skill sets, understanding economics, finance, project development, engineering, politics, whatever it may be, law. That public utilities commission, right? Governing the industry such that it has the authority to lay out a roadmap for governing our utility sector. I see we got ECO, I see we got BPL, I see all these things. But to me, I don't know, because since 2012, when I came home to look at this stuff, nothing has worked. And I can pull out data after data after data, because I have all the numbers from BPL, all of the internal numbers in terms of, because I was able to go through that in several of the bids that we participated in. So this Public Utilities Commission is looking at this whole process from the integrated perspective. Why? Because take, for instance, under the context of energy, under the context of water and sewer, under the context of telecommunications, they all work together with energy. Smart energy requires state-of-the-art technology. Water and sewage, in the sewer sector of our water and sewage department, where we have, I don't know, I don't think you could show me one wastewater treatment plant on this island that's working.
Oh, gee.
You can't show me one. Not that's doing what it's supposed to do, to treat waste as waste should be treated. Okay, and we talk about the environment and all these other things, but that's an area of sewer. When you flush the toilets on Bay Street, where does the waste go? When you fix the pipes at the fish fry and you send the waste from there, where does it go? What happens to it? So this commission, with a concentrated group who really are committed to improving the Bahamas, who have a mandate to reduce the cost to Bahamians.
Right.
To do so, you have to look at these things, not just what you see above the land, because you're dealing with water and sewage. You have to know and figure out what goes below the land, what we have there. Is it right? Is it working? Does it need to be upgraded? Can we use it still? Does it need to be thrown overboard? Telecommunications is the same thing. That's what I see a Public Utilities Commission trying to do. Now, when we look at energy, there are many pieces of it. The integrated solid waste management. We need to get the gas out of the waste. We could use that to minimize and reduce the volume of the fuel that we use. We can get to a point where an operating landfill can produce gas, implement recycling to be able to take the recycled products, utilize it, creating biomass that generates and burns electricity, create the gas that's needed. We have solar. We can utilize the sun. All it is to me is a way to reduce the volume of the fuel.
Right.
You have the natural gas. That is important. The place that needs to come from is the United States. You come to me and I'm in charge. If you go in any place else, that's your job. You've been fired. Figure out how to go get it straight from the horse's mouth. Okay? This thing is now, for me, after looking at it more than 10 years, we have to fix this sector. And we have a lot of people with a lot of good intentions, but the solution has got to be sat down and figured out, and it can't be done in secret. Everybody has to be involved. It has to be displayed so it could be properly critiqued. None of us have all of the answers. So I advocate for a Public Utilities Commission as a starting point.
Right.
As you can see here, in terms of looking at some of the various approaches in terms of how you could bring all of these pieces together, as an example, using, say, a 40 or 50 megawatt system, right? You have the solar. This is the grid. You have the landfill operations. You're sorting, you're producing biomass that powers the operation. You have a biomass plant. You have landfill gas. You figure out how to get that. You put that in the grid. You have the MSW. That means you're taking all the carbon out of the garbage. The construction and demolition, there are pieces of that could be used, that are organic in nature, that could be used to produce electricity. You have the casuarina trees and other land that we clear. We're trying to make sure, fix the beaches and other pieces of the country where we can go to various islands. I've done the casuarina study. I know what the heat value on the casuarina wood is. All of those, you can create a cottage industry, taking the casuarina and other forestry and utilizing it as a supplement that persons can bag up and grind up the coconut barks and all of those things. All of those are pieces that could help you reduce the volume of your fuel, because
Right.
that's what it's all about. And you can create a hybrid system, as you would see, utilizing solar and everything all come together. These are things that I've looked at with some of the experts, such as General Electric and other experts in biomass in the Bahamas, in Dominican Republic, in Cuba, and elsewhere, in Brazil. All of these are opportunities that exist. So, as we look at where do we go from here, okay? I did an example for Andros. We have Bamsi down there.
Yep.
We got to clear all this land for farming. All of these things, when looked at by our best minds in a Public Utilities Commission, takes a look at how to create jobs, how to reduce the cost of energy, how to create living cities, and how to create opportunities for Bahamians. So, in looking at this example that I placed on the screen, you would see that it includes all of the various aspects, but it also allows us to clean up a major problem on all our family islands. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. When we go, I challenge every cabinet minister and every member of parliament to get on an airplane and go to the various family islands and take a drive and look at the places that we have our solid waste on those various islands and see the flies and the smoke from the burning waste and all the other things on the family islands. So I challenge them to go there and take a look. And by creating a proper system, we could integrate solid waste, electricity, and the things that are required to upkeep our family islands.
Yeah. And so those are right in line with what we're talking about when we talk about the new built environment, right? And if I could just put the slide up real quick, for you. So we're talking about, like I say, all these things are intentional, because what you just talked about with the waste on the family islands and stuff like that. If you look at our skies are changing color, and it's mainly because of all this burning of this and burning of that that we do, etc., on the exhaust and what have you. So we don't want to get like some of these other countries where you need mass to be on. We have the carbon footprint, the seagrass, etc., that is helping, but man is always getting in his own way. And so we want to encourage persons to come up with creative ways of doing all of this. And so but one of the things from a general point of view is, I'm big in digital, and I like this idea of everything being smartly controlled. And so I want a smart country. I'm not me and Lester Cox from Ford a couple years ago on the smart country versus smart city. And they say you take the steps. I believe you just go big one time, because we have the digital connectivity to do the whole country. So make this whole country a pilot. I don't need to go piece by piece. That's going to take too long. And so if we look at that, then I ask the simple question that we tend to always run amiss, and that is, are linear generators smart? And can they be integrated with, like you said, the solar or the like? And I saw this chart on one of the websites that you would have. It seemed like it's smart to me that it's it's measuring the load to figure out what it needs to do between solar and the other generators and when to go on and go on. Is this a functional and practical solution today?
Well, yes, it is considered smart energy, but Dale, I want to be very, very clear here with you and with the
Mm-hmm.
audience. You know, and I challenge anybody because I have a 10-year analysis on solar, okay? And the calculations that I see now, I am open. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Anybody can come and correct me. I ain't got no shame. You could come and correct me if I'm wrong. But the analysis that was done, we did an analysis. And I can tell you that in order for me to put 1 megawatt of solar for 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
using all of the things that are required to do so without any support, I was at somewhere around 30 plus cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, these are real numbers. This
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why some of the major countries who utilize renewables, right, everywhere, they are subsidized. The Bahamas does not have a subsidized formula. So we have to be serious and look at it. Are we going to subsidize?
But that's why I say we have to
Because
look
at
at
the
it
end of the
from,
day, we have to look at how to keep the economy going and how to attract business. Business need power for 24 hours a day. The hotel need power all day. The factories in Grand Bahama, they need power all day. You need power at home all day.
yeah.
So how best do we do that? The sun is a fuel source.
Yes.
We have a choice to use 100% of our energy from the sun, or we can pick a sweet spot, a percentage
Yeah.
that strikes a balance that is affordable for Bahamians and that makes sense. That's what is required here. And as I
Right.
look at this and all of the other challenges that we face, okay, I'm a senior citizen now. I can speak. You know, we have to come up with workable solutions. And they can't take place in the presence of monopolies. We
Yeah.
need to do away with those. We need to create unfettered access for those among us that have vision. We have to create unfettered access for those of us that wish to take risk.
Mm-hmm.
We have to level the playing field for many different types of persons, not just Mr. So and so or Mr.
Yeah.
So and so children.
No, I understand. Mm-hmm.
These are fundamental pieces that the government, the walls that they must tear down. And I recall the Prime Minister's speech that he gave in Life with Key.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, you can give him this message for me. He needs to bring that same speech among us as Bahamians, because there are many of us who are Bahamians who find it very difficult to share with our brothers and sisters. We need to create real opportunities for Bahamian citizens among ourselves as well. And when we do that, when we allow our minds to flourish, the innovators to come forth and get a piece of this, when they could pick up the phone and go to a government agency and present something and get a timely response,
Mm-hmm.
when they could get cooperation, then I know we are
Yeah.
headed where we need to go.
Yeah,
Have
but
a
and
lot
that's
of work.
that's the whole idea behind the new built environment, and why I want people to join on that bandwagon, because what you're talking about is exactly what the new built environment is intended to do. We have to be intentional about our process. We have to open up the opportunities to succeed, and then we have to not just we have this habit in the Bahamas where we something is good today, and so we figure that's gonna be good for life. And so the engineers and whatever might know things going to change. I come out of the telecom industry where things, we cannibalize services, intentionally cannibalize our own services to get innovation into the industry because we know what the benefits was going to be for that. But we like the hard things in the Bahamas. Once it's done, oh, it's working good, and so we don't want to change it until it breaks. We can't have that mindset moving forward. We have to look at multiple technologies and multiple solutions and multiple fuels, as you mentioned, and so forth, and try to minimize those that are actually causing us harm. And that's why I'm always going to never forget what certain fuels do for us and their products. But nothing happens overnight, right? And so we have to build it intentionally. And on that point about the speech, yes, I agree. And I think that it needs to be broken down and sent, distributed and reiterated in certain pockets, or not in pockets where people are, but the speech itself, segments of it, and elaborate on that versus the whole speech itself. But I was told when I asked the question about it was that that same speech was actually given to people earlier in another location, but somewhere our communications within the Bahamas is poor, and so a lot of us didn't get that message that these would be what these people would be doing. So we have a lot of work to do in many, 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 many areas. But why I put this on the screen is because I wanted to find out if we come down to the small businessman or the business owner in particular, if it's not for residential, I don't know. But if we have a smart system already in place where we have Internet of Things all over the place, and if these things are another part of the Internet of Things, can we now leverage? Because I think power solutions can't just be one product. It has to be multiple products, so that when we get, like how in telecoms, we have backups on backups on backups. So the product itself might be a prime to go to the 969s, etc. But
I want to leave you. I want to leave you with something that I consider to be very important. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, because I just want to.
The important thing is this. The important thing is this. Is this deal? When you look at what we are trying to achieve in power generation and power supply and getting power to the consumers, there are three things that are important. Okay, there's three. Available power,
Yeah.
reliable power, and efficient power. These are three things that must be guaranteed. Okay? I don't see anyone in this country who can provide or has provided the answer to me that those three requirements are being met at acceptable standards that are required for a modern society and a municipality to function and to be productive. Okay? No matter how you slice it, Dave, that 1.8 billion kilowatts,
Yeah.
that is their responsibility to provide in 1 year. Okay? They have to say to you that these are guaranteed. That is the only way you can pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Judson, I hear
equipment.
you, right? But I'm gonna push back on you on this, right? The Royal Bahamas Police Force and its sister organization, if I could refer to it that way, as the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, have a duty to protect us. But we have alarms on our house. Some of us have bars on our house. Some of us have guard dogs on, and some of us get security. We have layers that we do this thing, and we have to approach power the same way. It can't just be relying on the government
No,
utility to provide the
Dale, I
service.
wasn't intending that the government guaranteed. The
Okay.
guarantee of that was kilowatts
Mm-hmm.
with those three variables. See, because when you understand the economics of it, okay, every dollar you spend on power
Yep.
has to be divided by those kilowatts,
Yep.
because you, the consumer, pays cents per kilowatt hour. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the more kilowatts you divide into the cost, the less the cost is per kilowatt hour.
Right.
So if you have to create a model where you find a number that is acceptable. Okay, you can't have one set producing it at 10 cents, the next one producing it at 18. No, you need to find a number. This is the cents per kilowatt hour
Right.
this country can generate power for. Because no matter what we spend, it has to be divided by those kilowatts. That's what I'm talking about, Dale.
Right.
And when I speak to the guarantees in power generation, responsible and professional power generating entities and professionals guarantee those things. And the only way you can guarantee those are through proper engineering,
Mm-hmm.
proper procurement, proper construction, and proper operations. What that
No
means
slow
is that the
20s.
people building those plants that we bring to give us those facilities must provide us with the guarantees that this is what and how this plant is going to behave. So that if it doesn't work, the Bahamian people do not have to pay for those mistakes. You see, when you put a power plant in Clifton Pier or wherever you may put it, and it don't work because you have 4 or 5 or 6 installed,
Right.
but the contract was for 7 plants, the only person that should feel pain for those 7 engines not running are the people that put it there. And the only way you're going to get the result that you require is that the people sitting and negotiating on our behalf has to put in place competent contracts and agreements with the people that provide the engineering, the procurement, and the construction. Now, when that is complete and it's finished, the operator steps to the table. The operator is either going to be a private, foreign, or Bahamian entity, or Bahamas Power and Light. And one of them have to be able to provide the guarantees associated with how that plant is going to operate. And when it doesn't behave in conformance to the equipment and the specs and the things that those plants are doing elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
then if the problem is with the people in BPL, then you need to change them. If the problem is with the people that you hired to operate the plant and they are foreign or Bahamian, then you need to move them. But you can't have a situation, because in the delivery of products, goods, and services in this world, as I said, engineer, procure, construct, operate, people get paid and have agreements to provide those services.
Right.
So when I speak to the issue of guarantee, that's what I'm talking about. It's
Okay.
in the contract. So if I build a power plant in Clifton Pier or Blue Hills, and it ain't doing what it's supposed to do, and I have a fuel supply contract, and a fuel supply person bring me fuel that ain't proper fuel, and it damaged my equipment, and nothing is done to correct the problem, or the burden is passed on to the Bahamian people, then they must suffer. It isn't, the fault isn't with the fellow who provided me with the fuel, you know. The fault is the people who signed the contract with him, who didn't put a proper contract in place. Because I know what a fuel contract should be.
Right.
You bring me bad fuel, you can pay for every single dollar I have to spend to correct the problem. And so we
Yeah.
have problem after problem after problem after problem in power generation and distribution, whether it's in the Bahamas or wherever it may be, not just with power or BPL or anywhere,
Right.
but with
Right.
other
Yeah.
government agencies.
Right.
Whether it's a building, someone comes to build and they build it and do it improperly, and there's no consequences. So the point I'm making is this. We need in our boardrooms, in our management systems, in our structures, to hold those people that are signing agreements accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the power plant in Andros or Bimini or wherever it may be broke down because someone bring me bad fuel, and all I could do was throw my two hands in the air, something
Right.
wrong. The fellow that brought me the bad fuel should pay for every single penny I have to spend to correct that problem. And if that agreement is written properly, the checks and balances I need to have in place. Okay? That means when the fuel come, I need to test it, this, that, the other, and I know what's going in. If you put the bad fuel in and the engine get water, the fuel get water, and you have a problem, the whole engine broke down, then you got to go bring Greco or somebody else to come rent and then add an additional cost that wasn't in the budget. How you expect the place to operate properly? Now, Dale, I know you can get in trouble for the night. I don't know why you said that, but go
Well,
ahead.
you know, and then we do the 5 and outs, and then we pretend like we don't know anything about what happened before, and we push the can down the stick to the next person. And so, as citizens and as electorate, we need to step up to the plate and do our part so that we don't allow these things to continue to happen. So, Judson, you have put a lot on the table tonight, and I know we haven't even touched my second half of questions that I had, but you were doing such a good job of breaking down the fundamentals that I just allowed you to continue. But you know, we have to have more of these type of conversations, and maybe we need to put together actually a little panel to have a more of a round table, not just the under the tree conversations like what I like to have. A couple of people so that we could break down how all of this impacts citizens individually, because I find that when we know individually what we do on a day-to-day basis, how it impacts what revenues we get back in our pockets, then we make the difference. Because today I still saw people throwing litter, let me use the correct word, out of the window, and there's only a garbage can 2 or 3 feet away from where the car was passing. So I mean, even if they want to throw it the window, they could have pulled on the side where the garbage can would let the child dump it, or the man dump it, or whoever it was who was throwing it out the window, and so forth. But it's an attitude change that we have to do, and that's what the new built environment is about: changing our attitude, changing so that we could go and create this country that's going to be around for us, because at the rate we're going, we're not going to be able, and I'm not even talking about any of those things that happening in the east or wherever they say it's happening. Because that, to me, they are not on the fundamental level. What we're talking about today is on the fundamental level.
There,
So we have to bring you back.
Who's we? Who's we? That's
Huh?
I'd like to know who
We,
you.
the
when you say
electorate,
we.
have to cause these things to happen. You know, not to take it in a different side. We just had majority rule day the other day, right? And I didn't have a show because a gentleman who was supposed to come on had to cancel, and it threw my whole system off. But in any event, back then the people of the Bahamas was more aggressive and assertive, I should say. Let me use the word assertive. Somebody told me the other day not to use the word aggressive. It's offensive according to them. But or negative. But we were more assertive in pushing for what was our goals and our cause. And I find today that we don't have common causes. That's why we tend not to do it. But we need to make the new built environment a common cause, because if we understand the concept behind it, all of these things is going to come to create a better quality of life for us and our children's children and so forth. But you could be friends with somebody in Parliament. That don't mean you can't fuss them up or you can't be critical to them. But in this country, we seem to think that, okay, if that's my friend, I can't tell him anything wrong, or I can't object to what he's doing today. And on the other side of it, you have members of Parliament who I've seen and encountered with who oppose me objecting to anything they say. As far as they're concerned, once they have authority sitting that seat, I'm not supposed to object. Well, my mommy didn't raise me that way, right? We were all raised to think. Yeah.
Let me just say this, and I want everybody to really pay attention to this last comment that I may make. One of the things that I've learned in the 68 years that I've now had the privilege to see, thanks to God and the country, the Bahamas, the Bahamian people, one of the things that I've learned is that we have to respect everybody, no matter who they are. And I've committed my life to respecting everyone and to accepting their views and to disagree or agree with them. But I think when we fail to respect each other, we tend to devalue the importance of our fellow Bahamians. And all I could do, I can't speak for nobody else but me. I believe it's important to respect people, no matter what they think.
Yep.
And as long as I know that I would have done something respectful and in a respectful way, I walk away, no skin off my back. And that's all I would try to encourage persons at the stage we are in. As you would see, we have a journey ahead of us. There's a lot left to be done. And it can only happen when we subscribe to integrity and understanding the importance of each other. We now live in a society where you have persons walking around the Bahamas who didn't go through a Bahamian school system because they came to the Bahamas at age 20 or 24, whatever it may be. And they didn't necessarily assimilate as they ought to have, because we have been negligent in ensuring that we keep a structured society. And so when I hear you talk about people throwing garbage out the window and not putting it in the garbage bin, while I'm not pointing at anyone in particular, I can only reflect on some of the experiences that I've seen in my travels around the world. I've seen in the Philippines, for instance, children in the age 8 and 9 sniffing glue living on the streets,
Mm-hmm.
sleeping under bridges. I've seen poor people in Panama and Dominican Republic. I was stuck in a traffic jam in Haiti for quite some time because a major rain squall came and all the garbage from the hill came down in the road and nothing could pass.
Mm-hmm.
It waited because you needed to have a truck come to clear the way. I looked in the ocean and I saw in some of these countries all kinds of things in the water, in the ocean that we cherish.
Right.
So we have to recognize where we are today in the Bahamas. We don't have the discipline that we should have. It's going to be difficult. But I think with proper leadership, with committed leadership, honest leadership, we should get somewhere.
Cool.
I enjoyed talking with you tonight. Somehow you brought some parts out of me that I didn't know exist.
That's
But
it.
I feel where you're trying to go, and I support what you're doing, and I hope
Thank
you're
you.
successful.
Yeah, we'll be successful as a country together. We'll get it done. I hope. Well, people say by hook or crook, but we ain't want the crook part. So,
And I hope I don't get beat up when you share this tape and they say that Wilmott guy, he biggity now.
you know,
No, I'm not biggity. I just want everybody to know that I respect them. I respect everyone.
yeah. Once nothing happens without thought, and we have the thought goes into action with words, and so the idea is hopefully if you have an emotional reaction to what is happening today, then let's have a conversation to see how we can clarify it and get it done. But that's how we want to do. So
Well,
I
you
want to
have a
thank you
job to
very much.
educate Bahamians. Your job is
Right?
to educate. You have a job to educate all of us and continue to do so. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want to thank you for taking the time. You've given me 27 minutes more than what I told you we would be.
You get
So
me
I
in
want
trouble.
to thank you
tonight.
extra.
You get me in trouble tonight, but I anyhow I can tell them I blame it on Dale.
Yeah. I could take the blows. The virtual blows, not no other kind of blows. Tell them don't come through no real blows. But thank you again, you kindly. Like I said, you laid a lot of nuggets on the table for people to think about, and hopefully it will inspire a new wave of movement and attitude towards energy challenges. And people would see that nobody is trying to really exclude them one from the system, but we want to make sure we could come up with something that is going to be sustainable in the long run. And my view of sustainability, it has to be practical, functional, feasible, healthy, and safe. And that's why I threw in earlier about the health part of it. In engineering, they teach you two things have to be in every single solution. Health and safety is the priority. Because when you sit on the chair or you hit the brakes in your car, those things have to work. Otherwise, you're in major problems. So thank you, Judson. And I don't know, you said a lot, so I don't think you might have anything else you want to say. But if you do, then
I just tell you, I am your bodyguard. You got me in trouble.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot. Good. So you've been watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knows, and we ask that you be kind to share, like until the button falls off your computer, and subscribe as you may, so that you don't miss any of these shows. And tell us what you really want to watch also, so that we could go and seek credible, competent authority persons in competence to be able to share with us and have a sensible under-the-table discussion. So with that, we'll be back next week. Hopefully we have a special guest who is going to touch on a hot topic that we think would be beneficial to you. So keep tuned, stay close, so that we could do this thing again next week, 6:30 on Tuesday.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242.